This is Rob Scott, and you're listening to the Fulham Focus podcast.
Fulham.
Hello, welcome to the Fulham Focus podcast. My name's Matt Boisclair, and we're back after the first tedious international break of the season to talk about some proper football. We've got a chat about a man who made his mark with both Fulham and West Bromwich Albion coming up, plus a preview of Saturday lunchtime's match with the Boing Boing Baggies too. But before any of that, thanks to Rob Scott for opening the show. Rob made 95 appearances for the club during the 90s, scoring 17 goals and made a big contribution to the 96-97 Mickey Adams promotion season. He was described by his former manager as someone who would play anywhere and always give his best, a top professional who never gave me any trouble. You can read Rob Scott's Q&A with Danny on our website, fulhamfocus.com. He's tall, he's fair, he always combs his hair. Robbie Scott, we salute you. Right, joining me firstly is the man with the stats, the only man called Arter who's not serving a suspension this week. It's our very own Statto, Matt Arter. Are you good, mate?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Good stuff. And a man who shares a first name with the surname of one of Fulham's finest legends of all time and a surname with an undesirable area of Glasgow. He's neither a legend nor is he undesirable, though. Just don't call him Calton. It's Morgan Calton. Evening, Morgs.
Hello, mate. How's it going?
All right, let's get into it and talk about our favourite Hungarian, Zoltan Gera.
Fulham.
Okay, so we're playing West Brom on Saturday lunchtime, and a player that is very dear to both Fulham and West Brom is Zoltan Gera. He signed for Fulham when he was 29. He was out of contract at West Brom, turned down a new contract at West Brom and decided to come to us instead. And it all worked out rather marvellously for him and us in the end. Morse, can you remember when he signed? What did you think of the signing? He was quite a good player at West Brom, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, I was really excited because I remember I left uni a couple of years before, and one of my housemates was a really big West Brom fan, and he was basically a hero to him. And so, we were talking, and I said, we've signed him. It's like, yeah, I'm really pissed off. I can't believe he's left us. The world's ending. So that's always good. And this was, pre-Twitter as well. So, you can't really get sort of the reaction of the fans. But when you sort of someone has loved the player so much, and, you see him on Match of the Day and all that. But it was, I thought it was a really good signing. It's one of those players that you would consider possibly unremarkable, but that he works hard. And I think it was, it was a great signing, especially on the back of the season before.
That's right, yeah. That sums up my feelings completely, actually. I thought he was kind of an unremarkable signing, but a bit of a workhorse, and I thought we might get a few goals out of him. What do you think, Statto? Do you remember us signing Zoltan Gera?
I do. Not to make either of you feel old, but I was 14 at the time when we signed him. Right. So, I was a typical teenager who played a lot of FIFA, so I just knew Zoltan Gera as this midfielder who played for West Brom, and then obviously on Match of the Day, he'd score the odd screamer here and there for West Brom. And then when we signed him, again, it was pretty uneventful. It was a free transfer. We didn't think much of it. But wow, what... he's turned into one of our icons, and it's just goes to show what a free agent signing can do for us.
Yeah, I think his form in the league was never really as good as his form in the Europa League, was it? I mean, he will be forever ingrained with us because of the goals and his performances that he scored in Europe. And we were chatting today, weren't we, on WhatsApp, and kind of talking about what would his career have been at Fulham had Andy Johnson not got injured? Because Andy Johnson and Bobby Zamora were kind of like the front two, weren't they, the previous season? In 08-09. And then Gera kind of came to fore in the Europa League season, 09-10, didn't he?
So, it was an interesting question, talking about, what would have happened had AJ been fully fit. And, obviously it was very unfortunate what happened to Johnson during his time at Fulham. And, when he was fit, he was firing for us. And, that you'd think, would that bring Gera down the pecking order? it probably would. But then, I also think, during the Europa League run and, during that time, Gera didn't necessarily play as the second striker. He was sometimes out in the wing with Dempsey behind Zamora. You had Simon Davis in the fold as well. So, if we would not have had that as big of an impact, but you can only wonder what would have happened.
Yeah, I think Gera and AJ are obviously two very different types of players, aren't they? AJ was the sort of player who'd try and get in behind the defender and play off the shoulder and use his pace, whereas Gera wasn't blessed with pace particularly, but he was blessed with a very good work ethic. And as Statto said, he often played in midfield as well. But he kind of converted into a second striker and formed a really decent partnership with Bobby Zamora during that Europa League Morgs, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I was watching it, since probably I was living in Australia at the time, so I was getting up at sort of stupid o'clock to watch these games. And he always stood out as, one of our sort of key players. And then obviously sort of as the later rounds progressed, more and more so. But there was something, sort of watching him, he was very different. Obviously, AJ was very clinical. He was a proper striker with a bit of pace, whereas Gera had this, whilst he was a workhorse, he also had this ability to turn on a sixpence. I mean, I was watching some of his goals again this afternoon, and his ability to just basically swing round, in sort of a manner that was so quick. I haven't seen that from a Fulham player before, or since, I don't think. And he, he just had that ability just to sort of score when you didn't think anyone else would. And obviously, the Hamburg goal was sort of one of those examples, which is probably the most important one in his career at Fulham, or in his career in general. But he was, he was just one of those players that was so integral to the Europa League team. But as you said, possibly not in the same way in the league.
Yeah, there's a couple of goals that stand out when you talk about almost turning on a sixpence with his back to goal. There's the Hamburg one, and then he did a very similar sort of thing against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge as well, where kind of took the ball, took a touch, and then just buried it beyond the keeper.
And United as well, that Man U game.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, kind of flicked it up, didn't he? I don't know if he miscontrolled it with that touch when we beat
doesn't matter.
but
does not matter.
No, absolutely not. But if he did miscontrol it, and then his second touch was absolutely sublime, wasn't it? We'll come on to his goals then. So I'm just going to list the ones in the Europa League to begin with. He had the one against Basel. Then he scored the first one against Shakhtar. And then he scored two against Juventus. And then, of course, he scored the one against Hamburg as well, and set up the equaliser in the final as well. So, of his goals in Europe, if you can remember them, which one, Statto, would you say really stands out as? Firstly, I mean, we don't need to talk about the most important one, because the most important one was quite clearly the Hamburg goal in the semi-final that took us to the final. But which of those goals from Europe would you say stands out as his best?
I mean, it's really hard not to say the Hamburg one, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not just because of the importance, but just because of the technique and just how he brought that down and just rinsed that defender and just finished. Oh God, just the memories of that.
Yeah,
it was just such a good time.
It was. I remember the first goal that Simon Davis scored. I didn't even celebrate that goal. I thought, I'm not going to get too excited here because one goal isn't enough, after Petric gave them the lead. But once that second goal went in, I just went mad and lost my voice.
But, if we had to pick a different goal from that Europa League run, I think the Basel goal was, quite an important goal. We were still in the group stages at that time. We were away. To get a result in Basel in that final group game, to qualify, that was such an important moment for us, and
we had to win that game.
Yeah,
draw wouldn't have been enough. We had to win.
Exactly, and the fact that we did, and he got on the score sheet, and he put in such a good performance for us on that day. That was just, that's probably the one that stands out other than the Hamburg one for me.
What about you, Morgs? Would you agree with the Basel one?
Well, yeah, I think because otherwise, the run wouldn't have happened. It would just been another repeat of the 2011, 2012 Europa run, and it would just been a bit of a whimper. And that's whilst the Juve goals, obviously 2 goals in that game are ones that put us through. And, but without that goal in the snow, it would have been a very different story.
Would have been. It definitely would have been. Aside from his goals in Europe, does the Manchester United goal stand out as his best? There was also an absolute cracker away at Man City in the League Cup that he hammered into the bottom corner from probably 35 yards.
Yeah, I think the goals against the two Manchester teams probably stand out. I know we already mentioned the Chelsea one as well, where he managed to swivel around. The thing with Gera is he either scores like absolute belters like that one against City, or he just scores like the nice little scrappy goals in the box, that aren't particularly special but are important. And, that's kind of epitomises Gera perfectly in a way. He just works and works and works and, does produce that moment of magic every now and then. And, the City and the United goals kind of show that. And, they're probably the most memorable ones that we can think of. But there are so many other ones.
I would think that City goal was probably sort of further out than the rest of his goals combined.
Yeah, quite exactly. Probably, yeah.
It was a very it seemed like a very uncharacteristic goal considering sort of looking at the rest of them. And I think, it's just one of those that he just, on the nice height, just hit it and flew in. But, it wasn't sort of your typical Gera finish. But, can't argue with that.
I think part of the reason that he was so popular to Fulham fans, because he was only at the club for 3 years. He left in 2011. But the reason he was so popular, apart from the important goals that he scored, was the fact that he was good under pressure. So he popped up with that important second goal against Juventus just before half time, and then as soon as we got the penalty in the second half to make it level on aggregate, he was the one that stood up, and he showed no nerves whatsoever. It's a cracking penalty into the bottom corner. And he'd also really celebrate the goals well as well. It wasn't like he'd arrogantly run off and, yes, that was me, I did do that. He'd properly do backflips and all sorts. And the goal against Hamburg, he's on his knees looking up to the gods. He's just a really passionate man.
I think he's like he's the sign that probably epitomises, what that Roy Hodgson team was about. We signed him, on a free, and he wasn't, the flashiest of players, and he wasn't, no one who's a non-Fulham fan looked at Gera and thought he was an amazing player, but his work rate and, his passion and his desire to stick to the game plan, which is, a big part of Roy's, mentality of all of his teams, it just perfectly summed it up. And I think Gera was, the perfect player, to fit into a Roy Hodgson system.
I think especially after sort of, coming so close to going down, he needed to bring in players that did install that sort of work ethic that maybe hadn't been seen from the team that Sanchez put together. And he obviously had talent as well, which helped, which maybe a couple of them didn't have at the time. And it's, that was the exact signing that was needed, that type of player. If, what's his face, Klein had been about, or, whoever had been putting the stats together, that would have been what he'd been looking for back then.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And of course, he was player of the season in 2009-10, the Europa League season. So his work rate and his achievements didn't go unnoticed by the Fulham supporters. Okay. In 2011, he was coming to the end of his contract, and we played Arsenal on the last day of the season. Gera's on the bench, and as he comes off the bench, he gets a big ovation. I remember the Hammersmith end singing Zoltan Gera, we want you to stay. He was on the pitch for a couple of minutes and he went flying in with a 2-footed tackle and got sent off immediately. So his career came to a really unfortunate end at Fulham. Do you guys remember that at all?
I don't actually remember it, to be honest. It was only when we were prompted in the group chat today about his final game for us. And looking back on it, it was quite a bad challenge, wasn't it? And I think
it wasn't the best. It was quite uncharacteristic of him, to be honest. Must have been quite wound up, and quite the adrenaline pumping because of the ovation that he got, and he was just doing his absolute best. But he wasn't that sort of player at all, was he? He wasn't the sort of player. I never really remember him being dirty at all. But yeah, that was quite uncharacteristic.
I was just thinking, sort of after a season of playing under Mark Hughes and sort of being frustrated with his lack of game time, he was probably just so pissed off with him and just like, so much sort of frustration built up over the course of a season that I imagine he was sort of, if he'd been given the ball again 30 yards out, he probably would have just taken a sort of pot shot straight towards goal, but instead, the person that came nearest to him was the one that got the pot shot. And you say it was uncharacteristic. It was definitely not what you'd seen from him over the last 3 years, and it was a passionate tackle. Let's call it that rather than dirty. And I think it was just a really unfortunate way for him to go, really. And it's and it was sad that he was leaving, but obviously, if his belief was that Mark Hughes was going to be there come the next season, then he wasn't going to get any more game time. So, the right move for him was to move off.
Of course, he went back to West Brom, and who was manager at West Brom at the time? Roy Hodgson.
Roy, of course. Do you reckon he would have stayed? Like, had he known that Hughes wouldn't have been there?
Who knows?
Or was his heart set on reuniting with West Brom and with Roy? It kind of sounds like a match made in heaven for him, doesn't it? So,
well, Roy brought the best out of him, didn't he? Quite clearly.
Definitely.
Fulham certainly did, anyway. All right, so he scored 17 goals in 117 games whilst he was at Fulham. I'm going to ask each of you to give him a rating, or his Fulham career a rating out of 10 now. Morgs, to you first. What do you give Zoltan Gera's time at Fulham out of 10?
For passion, for the importance of his goals, I think I'm just going to have to give him an 8. I think, if he'd been, considering how important his goals were in the Europa League and what he offered to the team, I think I would have given him sort of a 9 if he'd sort of shown it in the league as much as he had in the Europa. But I'll give him a nice solid 8. Nice.
And what about you, Statto?
Yeah, I think an 8 is probably about right for him. I was just looking up, actually. He only scored 5 goals for us in the league, but that's eclipsed by what he achieved for us in Europe, and for that alone, I think a solid 8.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think I'd agree with you. I'd also go for an 8, just because of that Europa run, really. We'll never see that again. Well, I certainly won't see that again in my lifetime. So,
you're only 37.
Well, yeah, but
what are you? 38. How old are you? I don't know.
Yeah,
you're not
38. But can you see us getting into another Europa final in the next, 30, 40 years? I certainly can't.
Yeah, well, there'll be some weird sort of other sort of version of the competition by then. We'll be in a final of some sort.
Yeah, they're making a Europa League 2, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. Well, given the fact that we know that you were at a wedding when we got to the playoff final, and you missed the Europa final because you were in Australia, any chance you can fuck off somewhere else again so we can get some more success, please?
It's not like my missus.
Good stuff, lads. All right, let's go on to the Saturday's game with West Brom.
Fulham.
Okay, so just quickly before we discuss the West Brom game, Fulham confirmed that Michael Hector, Chelsea centre-half, will be joining permanently in January after he almost joined on transfer deadline day this time, but something went wrong with the timings, I think, and we just missed out. So he's currently training with us. Statto, are you happy with that signing?
Extremely happy. He is a top quality signing for us, I think, and it's exactly what we need. And it's just a shame that we don't get him till January. We can only hope that we're still up and around there come January, and then when he comes in, what a reinforcement to have come January, and what a boost it will be to the team, I think.
Yeah, just if we are up there though, and we're not conceding that many goals, all right, we've conceded a few so far, but if the defence is looking solid, then I don't think he'll walk straight into the team. What do you think, Morgs?
I think it's a great signing. I don't know a huge amount about him. I've done a bit of reading up and sort of looking at sort of responses from Sheffield Wednesday as Chelsea fans and whatnot, and it's the signing that we needed in August. It was, and in August. But it does take some of the pressure off the transfer window come January. We're not going to be heading up to sort of January 31st, 10:59 p.m. going, where's our bloody defender? At least we have him from January 1st, straight in the team if need be. But at least it does keep Mawson and Ream on their toes. Because at the moment, there's not really a capable backup. You might count Adoy, but you certainly can't count Lamachon at the moment because, let's face it, every time he's come to the pitch, he's looked like an absolute liability.
You could count McDonald. You could count McDonald.
You can, true. But he's not technically a centre back. So I'd rather sort of, if you're going to go for, a backup, then you want somebody who can play there naturally. And I think, if you have someone like Hector who is so well regarded, especially at this level, ready to come in. And I think, the fact that he is training with the team, he can get to know them. Hopefully he'll get some PL2 games if he's allowed to play in that. They might organise a couple of behind closed doors friendlies for him. I think it's a very savvy sort of business to get it done right now. So I think, from that point, well done to Tony Khan and all that lot. And I think, as long as he can sort of, stay fit, keep up a sharpness as best as he can, with 3 months without football. And, sort of hopefully come January, he can, come straight to the side if we need him. Otherwise, as soon as one of Mawson or Ream sort of lose a bit of form, or inevitably when Mawson gets injured, he can step straight in.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I'm looking forward to him joining up with the first team in January. One man that we won't be seeing again, though, and there was not a dry eye in the house last week when he left, was Fabry, who joined Mallorca on loan. And genuinely a really sad one for me was Floyd Ayite, who joined some team in Turkey called Biligi or something like that. Something like that. Yeah, of course. Really sad to see Floyd go, and I think everybody at Fulham Focus wishes Floyd all the best, especially for his performances in the season when we got promoted. I would have liked to see him stay this season, to be honest, but obviously he wasn't seen as somebody who was going to be playing many games. So yeah, all the best to Floyd Ayite.
I think from that, Floyd sort of knew that he wasn't in the first team. Was he 30, 31 now?
Yeah, let's say that.
I think, and it was the right move for him. He probably got half decent money over there, opportunity to play first team football. And I would have liked, same as you, I would have liked to see him stay. I'm more than happy to see Niskanen sort of go off, because I think those two are kind of competing for that, extra place on the bench, as it were. So it is sad to see him go, but I think, from his point of view, you can't sort of, say that he wasn't making the right move. I think from the Fabry point of view, I mean, I think when he signed, the reaction of the Besiktas fans to him joining was just like, I was expecting this, unpassable keeper. I felt really sorry for him. I think he wasn't given a chance. I think, he didn't look great in those first two games, but then no one did. And he just seemed to be a massive scapegoat for it. And I've said it before, I'm not a massive fan of Betts. I don't think he's that good. And I think he gets sort of, a lot of leeway just because of, him being, one of our own, as it were. So I think, it would have been nice for him to have been given more of an opportunity, but I really hope he does well in Mallorca, and, it'll be nicer in winter down that way anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Good luck to him. All right, let's move on to Saturday's game against West Brom. One man who has very recently been part of West Brom's plans is Stefan Johansson. I think he might be back in the team this weekend after Harry Arter's suspension. Personally, I think Harrison Reed will do the Harry Arter defensive midfield role, and Steph Joe will come back into the team. What do you guys think? What do you think, Statto? Are you expecting Steph Joe to be back in the team this weekend?
Yeah, I'm fully expecting Reed, Johansson and Kearney in the midfield three. Although Arter has got off to an excellent start for us in that defensive midfielder role, I think I'd quite looking forward to seeing Reed and Johansson playing together. Obviously for Cardiff, we had Reed and Arter playing together, and it didn't work as well as we thought it would. Arter doesn't quite have that box-to-box stamina that Johansson has. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing Reed, who's probably a bit more defensive-minded than Arter, just kind of sit back, almost play a K-Mac light role almost, and Steph Joe to be his usual box-to-box. And I'm hoping that gives Kearney the opportunity to, get forward a lot more and create a lot more chances. I've noticed, in the last few games, he hasn't really been going forward as much as he used to. Maybe it's a style of play that Parker likes to, implement. But no, I'm fully expecting to see those three in the midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to say, last season from January, Steph Joe played 14 times for West Brom. scored twice and got 3 assists. I can see him scoring this weekend, to be honest, but we'll come on to that shortly. So West Brom are something of a yo-yo side, Morgs, aren't they? They're in 4th position at the moment. They've made a good start this season. They've won 3, they've drawn 3, they're undefeated, scored 7 goals and only conceded 3. Do you see them as promotion contenders this season?
Yeah, for sure. I think they are a good side. I don't think they'll be automatics, but I think they'll certainly be in the playoff fight. I think Bilic had a bit of a mixed time at West Ham, but I think he's a decent manager, and I think he'll do pretty well at this level. They do need to sort of maybe have a bit more consistency. I think so they've been a bit, they haven't. I can't remember what you said the record was, but they haven't actually lost too many. But they had a bit of a lucky escape.
3 wins, 3 draws.
3 wins, 3 draws. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's not too bad then, is it? But yeah, I think they'll definitely keep going. I think towards the end of the season, whether they have a huge amount of squad depth or not, I don't know. But they are a good quality side, and I think if they have the right organisation, then they should be sort of a difficult team to beat. And I think it'll be a hard one this weekend. I think without Arta there, who has been, I think he's been our sort of standout player since he came into the team. He brings that sort of solidity that no one else has been able to bring. And I think it's almost like K-Mac in the promotion season. And obviously K-Mac is not the same player that he was in the promotion season. So bringing him in, is probably unlikely. But, I think it'll be a tight game. I don't think there'll be a huge amount of goals in it. Maybe 1 or 2. But yeah, it'll be a good game.
With that in mind then, Statto, do you think that a win in this match is a real statement that we are serious about going up?
Absolutely, I think so. Especially, we haven't won in 2 games now. And if we don't win, on Saturday, that's 2 home matches in a row that we haven't won. And let's be honest, in the Championship, if we're looking to get promotion, that's not good enough. And especially, this is, I was going to say this is probably the first big test, but we have played Cardiff away and Huddersfield away, but, they're not particularly in good form. This is probably one of the first form teams we've come up against. And, getting a big win here will be a huge confidence boost for the players, for the manager. And, and it could set up that momentum we need to go, some mazy winning streak, in the lead up to Christmas.
Yeah, completely agree. I think it's a massive game for us, and it could be a real springboard to get the season back on track after the loss at home to Forest, and then the point that we gained against Cardiff. But before that game, I was hoping for a win as well. So I'd really like to see us win this one.
Plus, post sort of international break as well, it'll be quite interesting to see how we come out, because obviously, when you get the players come back, we've had a few sort of out and about, dotted around the planet. So it will be interesting to see how Mitra and Ream.
Mitra scored, didn't he?
He did.
Scored for Serbia.
I don't know how Ream did, but they're playing Luxembourg. He scored. He is 1-0 away to Luxembourg.
Yeah,
so take him off.
We're recording this on Tuesday evening, and assuming that some of you guys are listening to this on Thursday morning this week. Yeah, we're recording it a couple of days early. So England are currently 5-1 up at half time as well, which is amazing, really.
Yeah.
Okay, just for a bit of fun then. Saturday lunchtime kickoff, Statto, are they for you?
I want to say yes, but the whole point of lunchtime kickoffs is so that the big TV corporations can get as many televised matches out there as possible, which is fine. But you need to think of the fans. So this doesn't just go for the lunchtime kickoffs. This goes for Friday night games and Sunday games. So Friday night we played Huddersfield away. Why would you put a London-based team, give them an away game on a Friday night? That makes no sense for the fans. And similarly for a lunchtime kickoff, making lots of West Brom fans come down for an early kickoff. It's if you're going to do lunchtime games, at least do local derbies or games where fans don't necessarily need to travel too far.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a big fan of a 3 p.m. on Saturday, and anything else is just, I can't stand it. But if it's not my team that's involved and I'm doing nothing else on a Saturday, then I'm quite happy for a 12:30 game on a Saturday. But if it means I've got to go all the way to, I don't know, Huddersfield or wherever to see my team play on a Saturday lunchtime, then I'm not that keen. What do you think, Morgs?
I see it from the point of view of, games like, Villa Birmingham or Man U Liverpool or whatever, where from a security point of view, you have those games at sort of midday, 12:30, so the fans can't get too pissed and start beating the shit out of each other. But when it's Fulham West Brom, that well, they could do if you want, but I think that's the technical reason why they do it. But from a point of view of Fulham West Brom, it's like, come on, that is not a 12:30 on a Saturday game. That is a 3 p.m. kickoff. Yeah. Or a Sunday if you must. But I'm the same as you. I like my Saturday 3 p.m.s. I know they're few and far between these days, but unless you're trying to protect me from having my head kicked in, I don't want to have a game closer to breakfast than lunchtime.
Fair enough. That's a good way of putting it. Right. In front of me, I've got the stats that Statto you lovingly prepared for us earlier.
As always.
So, as always, exactly. Fulham and West Brom have met 82 times in the past, with Fulham winning 27 and West Brom winning 36. So we need to redress the balance there for sure. Fulham have won 3 of the last 8 meetings with West Brom. There have been 4 draws and just the 1 defeat. So I guess we're slightly ahead in more recent times. We last met in the 2014 season when there were 2 draws. But the last time we met in the Championship was way back in the Jean Tigana season. In April 2001, we drew 0-0 at the Cottage. And then earlier in that season, we won 3-1 at the Hawthorns as well, where Sean Davis grabbed a couple of goals. That was a really good game, that one. Former players that we share with West Brom. Obviously, we've already mentioned Stefan Johansson, who was on loan there last season. Berdinio, the aforementioned Zoltan Gera, who we spoke about earlier also. Nicky Shorey, we had him on loan, I think, the left back. Giles Barnes, did he ever play for us?
He was on the books.
He was definitely on the books. I remember him waving on the pitch once, but I don't think he
I've done that.
The team, did he? Of course you have. Jonathan Greening, Europa legend. Jumanji Camara, the Great Escape season legend with his fantastic goal against Man City away. Pascal Zubabula, legendary bench warmer. Super Jeff Horsfield, legend. Inamoto, Kieran Richardson, and Paul Pesky-Solido as well. So we've had a lot of players shared with him over the years, and that's just the more recent years as well. So there's quite an affiliation between the two clubs in that sense. Looking back at how West Brom did last season, they got to the playoffs semi-final and lost to Aston Villa on penalties. Bizarrely, they sacked their manager, Darren Moore, towards the end of the season, whilst they were already quite nicely placed in the playoffs. Yeah, and it cost them promotion in the end. Well, I don't know whether that decision did, but they didn't go up, so let's say it did. They won 48% of their away games. They lost 8 out of their 23 away games. Hopefully they will be losing this weekend. They scored 34 goals in the 23 away games and conceded 31. And 59% of their goals away from home came in the second half. So with them being more likely to score in the second half and our defence being quite leaky at times, I suppose, I guess we need to watch ourselves. But they did have Dwight Gale last season. I think we've already mentioned their results this season with their 3 wins and their 3 draws. Key players, Statto, do you want to run us through some of their key players for this season? I've penciled Sam Johnson, the goalkeeper, Kenneth Zahor, and Charlie Austin. Anybody else we need to watch out for?
They signed Romain Sawyers from Brentford, and he was always quite an important player for Brentford. Not that I like saying that at all. I haven't seen much of West Brom so far this year, so I haven't quite figured out how they like to set up under Slaven Bilic, whether it's any different from what it was under Darren Moore last year. I think last year under Moore, they like to play 3 at the back with wing backs. I'm not sure if they've been utilising that at all this year or not. Obviously, they've still got long-staying players like Chris Brunt. He's still there, I think. Always dangerous, particularly at this level. And also, is James Morrison still there?
Who knows?
I think he might be.
No.
Is he not? No.
Doesn't look like it.
So, I think they're very much going through a large transition period. Over the summer, they lost a lot of players that they kind of retained in the Premier League. Players like Jay Rodriguez, Craig Dawson. They've all moved on to Premier League clubs now. So there's almost a mini rebuild going on there, and obviously they've got off to a great start. And obviously Kenneth Sahor, and Charlie Austin, they've got some considerable firepower there in the Championship. Zahor scored 25 goals in 60 Championship games for Cardiff, I believe. Charlie Austin scoring 66 goals in 132 Championship games for various teams, including QPR, Burnley. There's another team as well, I can't quite remember. So, they're going to be a dangerous team. Yeah,
okay. Well, with that in mind then, what do you think the score's going to be? What's your prediction?
I want to say a Fulham win, obviously. I think...
I want you to as well.
I should. I'm just a bit...
Go on.
It's a bad thing that I'm a bit hesitant about that, though. But I want to say Fulham. I want to say a 3-1 win for Fulham. I also want to say that if we don't win, given how fickle football fans are, I can expect to see the first Parker out chance coming if we don't win on Saturday.
Oh, surely not. No.
Given how fickle football fans are.
It's already happened, isn't it? Were people not saying that after the Barnsley defeat, the first game?
Yeah. Just to say, I'm not part of that brigade at all, but you can definitely see that happening if we lose against West Brom, which won't happen. Definitely won't happen.
Good man. So what did you say the score was going to be?
I want to say 3-1 Fulham.
3-1. Good man. All right, what about you, Morgs? What do you think?
I don't think there'll be that many goals in it. I think, I'm the same as Statto. I'm not quite sure if I want to say a Fulham win. And on that note, I'm going to say 1-0. I'm going to go for a clean sheet, but I don't think there's going to be much in it.
It's bold.
I was thinking 1-0 as well, and I was thinking Stefan Johansson's going to get the goal. And then last minute, one of their players is going to be clean through, and he's just going to go in and completely take him out with some kind of kung fu kick to the chest or something. Classic step.
Or as he calls it, a tackle.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, okay. Well, I think every time we've done a podcast so far this season, everybody said it's going to be a Fulham win. So that's a good thing, because this time last year we were not happily, but readily predicting Fulham to lose every week. After the start of May,
No, it's only a few weeks into it. We're only just over a month into the season. I think it's going to be a little while before we start doing the flippant. Oh fuck it, we're going to lose 4-0.
Yeah.
There was still optimism at this point last year. I think.
Yeah.
Well, there's more optimism, and there's more reasons to be optimistic this time. We've made a decent-ish start, so we're there or thereabouts. So good stuff. All right, guys. Morgs, any other business before we go?
No, I think that's covers it all quite nicely. I don't think I'm quite happy for the international break to be over now. I think it's good to get back to club football and just forget about all that nonsense in Europe for a little bit longer. So yeah, just looking forward to getting back to it.
Good man. What about you, Statto? Anything else to add?
No, yeah, likewise. I'm just looking forward to the international break being over. It's great that England are winning, but it's against teams like Kosovo and Bulgaria. I mean, roll on club football.
Yeah, completely agree. Nice one, lads. Okie dokie. Well, thanks you both for joining me, and to everybody at home for listening. We always appreciate you doing so, as otherwise it would all be a little bit pointless, wouldn't it? If you like what you hear, why not tell the person sitting next to you at the cottage on Saturday, unless they're a West Brom fan, of course. If they're a West Brom fan, have them ejected, for goodness sake. Seriously, though, we'd all really love to grow this show, and any help you can give us would be greatly appreciated. So please do tell all your friends to subscribe if you like what you hear. In the meantime, find us on all the usual social media channels. Here's to a big performance on Saturday, and we'll be back to talk all about it on Monday morning. See you then. Cheers.